Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the CTS-131 Section 402 course for the spring 2021 semester. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's Switching, Routing, and Wireless Essentials version 7 course curriculum. And in this activity, we're going to be taking a look at Packet Tracer 11.1.10, where we're going to be implementing port security on a Cisco switch. So let's dive into this introductory activity, which does a very good job of sort of walking you through the steps that are going to be required to complete this configuration. Now, there are a number of semantics that we're going to be talking about that we need to take into consideration when performing port security configuration. So let's go ahead and dive in. You can see we've got the addressing table here over on the top right-hand side of the screen. And let's jump into step 1. And so all of our configuration work, for the most part, is going to be done on switch 1. And let me see, it's not going to let me move that laptop, so we're going to have to just kind of leave that there for now. And let's jump on to the CLI of switch 1, and we're going to be in user exec mode. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to transition to privilege exec. Now, they want us to go ahead and enable port security on Fast Ethernet 01 as well as Fast Ethernet 02. And if I say show IP interface brief, you'll notice that Fast Ethernet 01 and 02 are the only two ports that are up. In fact, they are the ports into which these devices, PC1 and PC2, are plugged into respectively. So PC1 is plugged into Fast Ethernet 01, and PC2 is plugged into Fast Ethernet 02. So we come back to the command line here, and you can see VLAN 1 is up, and we'll probably do some ping testing with that. But we're going to go ahead and go into global config and in the interface range command. And we're going to go into both Fast Ethernet 01 and 02 at the exact same time. Now, this command is very, very important, and this is one of the most important things to remember about enabling Switchport port security, is that you must have the Switchport port security command by itself, run by itself, or all of the other configuration for port security will not be active. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm trying to say here is that if you were to say right now, Switchport port security maximum 1, in other words, if I was to skip that command right there and type in Switchport port security maximum 1, Switchport port security MAC address sticky, Switchport port security violation restrict, if I was to type those 3 commands in, they would show up on the port and none of them would be active. None of those commands are active until you say Switchport port security by itself and hit enter. Once you've entered that command, Switchport port security, now all of the Switchport port security other option commands you've entered are live. Now, let's go ahead and say do show run. Now, this is going to be very important. You can see that Switchport port security is on. Now, is it really on? And if so, what options are actually on right now? Well, as Cisco loves to do, there are some default options that are going to be configured right out of the gate. Now, this leads us into step 1, step B, substep B, where I'm going to say Switchport port security, and I'm going to set the maximum number of MAC addresses that are allowed on these 2 ports to be 1. In other words, only the first device that gets plugged in, whose MAC address is learned, and we're going to be doing that via the sticky method here, only 1 MAC address is allowed to be on that switch port. So now I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to say do show run again, because we're interested in seeing what that command looks like when configured on an interface. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, that's odd. We just typed in Switchport port security maximum 1, and there's no line in the interface config under the interface for Fast Ethernet 01 or 02 that says Switchport port security maximum 1. And the reason for that, you've probably already guessed, is because that is the default. So when I say Switchport port security by itself and I hit enter, by default, the maximum number of MAC addresses allowed on that port is 1. So they have us type that command in here, but we don't see the command under the interface configuration section because it's the default. So now let's go ahead and say Switchport port security, MAC address, and you'll notice we can hard code and manually enter in the MAC address, or I can say sticky. And what sticky's going to do is on the first received frame that comes into that port on the switch, whatever the source MAC address was on that frame, in other words, PC1 sends a frame that comes into switch 1, the source MAC address would be PC1. And this sticky is, think of it like glue, right? It's basically going to glue the MAC address of PC1 to Fast Ethernet 01 upon receiving the first frame from PC1, and PC2's frame, the first frame that comes into Fast Ethernet 02 on switch 1, it's going to be sticky. It's going to be glued to that port. So let's go ahead and complete this command. Now, let's say do show run, because I just made the statement that when the first frame is received, we're going to see a line that's going to capture the MAC address. Well, we don't see that line. Where's the line that shows me that it's glued or stuck that MAC address, the respective MAC address for Fast Ethernet 01 PC1 or Fast Ethernet 02 PC2? Where is that MAC address? Well, we haven't sent any frames, but we're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing that here shortly. So now we're going to set the violation mode. In other words, what do we want the switch to do if, for whatever reason, it receives a frame that is not from PC1 on Fast Ethernet 01 or PC2 on Fast Ethernet 02? Do we want it to shut the port down, which is the default mode? So if I was to say Switchport port security violation shutdown, that is the default mode. Then you have restrict, and we're going to see the third mode here in just a second when I say Switchport port security violation protect. Now, what's the difference between these modes? Well, restrict is going to generate a trap, right? It's going to generate a message indicating, hey, we've had some kind of a violation here of port security. And protect is going to simply, it will protect. The difference is it's not going to send a message. And shutdown is pretty self-explanatory. It is going to shut that port down. And we're going to see what happens here when we do that. So let's go ahead and type in restrict. Now remember, if I don't type anything in for Switchport port security violation, the default is to shut the port down. So in other words, restrict and protect are not shutting the port down, right? Okay, so we've taken care of that. It wants us to disable all of the other unused ports. So interface range Fast Ethernet 03 to 24, gigabit Ethernet 01 to 2. Whoops, and let me go ahead and see if, I'm sorry, now I just saw what I had messed up there. I thought it was with the int. It popped the line under int, and I thought maybe it didn't like the fact that I had abbreviated it, but I was missing the / there between the 0 and the 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shut all of those ports down, right? So those have all been administratively shut down. So from PC1, let's ping PC2. And here's where we're going to actually be generating the first frames that are going to come into switch 1. So I'm going to say ping, and PC2 is 10, 10, 10, 11. You can see we've got a little blinking that's going on here because we're going to send 4 ping packets. We're going to get replies. ICMP echo replies are going to come back, and the source address in the ICMP echo reply is going to be PC2. The ICMP echo request from PC1, the original ping packet, has the source address of PC1. So let's take a look here. And you can see we're at 100%, but we've got some other things we want to look at. If I say do show run now we see the MAC address that we have glued to this port. And remember, we're saying that we're only allowing 1 MAC address. Remember that. You don't see the maximum number of MAC addresses here because we put in the default, which is 1. So if you don't see that, remember it's 1. And also, that command by itself, just switchport port security, enter, right? Hit enter. That has got to be configured on the port, because if all I had were those 3 commands right there, you might think that port security is working, but it would not be working. Without switchport port security, switchport port security is not functional. So we've picked up the interface here. It's asked us to say show switchport port security. Show port security. So let's say do show port security. And here's what we're going to see. We're going to see the ports on which port security has been enabled. We're going to see the maximum address count, right? How many MAC addresses are being allowed, right? It's MAC address, not IP address, MAC addresses here. Current address count. How many MAC addresses do I currently have? And it sees 1, right? The one that we have glued, that we have stuck to the port. And are there any violations? Well, the answer here is no. And then, what is the action to take if there is a violation? And let me prove to you here. Let's go into interface fast Ethernet 03. Now, nothing's configured on fast Ethernet 03, but what if I said switch port security, right? And we'll say switch port mode access. And the reason we received this message, right, sort of a fortuitous failure here, it came back and said, well, it's a dynamic port. Well, remember, if I was to say do show interface fast Ethernet 03 switch port, we would have seen here that it was dynamic auto, right? Remember, they're dynamic auto ports by default on current Cisco switches. And so that's the message we're getting here is, hey, this is a dynamic port. You're trying to turn port security on a dynamic port, and it's going to reject that command, right? Because the command isn't, or I should say the port, it hasn't been determined. Is it an access port? Is it a trunk port? What is it, right? We don't have anything plugged in there. So it wasn't able, DTP, I should say, dynamic trunking protocol, wasn't able to negotiate or figure out, is it a trunk port or is it an access port? So the command gets rejected. Now, can you turn port security on a trunk port on? And the answer is yes, you can. Now, would you do that? Debatable, but you could do it. I'm sure there are use cases for it out there. I've actually seen it in some Cisco activities. So it is something that you could do. However, here we're worried about access ports, but I want to make sure you understand why we see command rejected. It's because it doesn't know if it's an access port. It doesn't know if it's a trunk port. It's just a dynamic port. But we hard-coded it with the last command that we ran, which was switch port mode access. So it is an access port. Now, operational mode down means there's nothing plugged in. But if I come back and I say switch port security, the command is going to be taken. So now what we want to say is do show, whoops, sorry, got carried away there on those commands. We're going to say do show port security. Because now I'm going to prove to you that without any other commands entered here, remember we talked about defaults. We'll take a look. What is the maximum number of MAC addresses? 1. The only command entered on that port is switchport port security. So here are my defaults. The maximum is 1. The current, right? There's nothing plugged in, so we don't see anything. And there's no violations because nothing's plugged in. And there is your default action, right? So that's the default violation mode, is to shut that port down. So I wanted to make sure that I showed you that. Now, what's interesting here is it's dropped our completion percentage to 99, right? Because I configured port 3. Well, let's see if I say default interface fast Ethernet 03, And it's still, we're still only at 99%, but we got to 100 and we knew we got to 100. So we'll leave it, we'll just move on from here, right? So another great command is do show port security address. Oops, sorry. Come back here, address. Now, this is pretty cool, right? Because this is going to show me the MAC address that's associated to the port, and it shows me what type. Like, how did this MAC get stuck? Did it get glued to that specific port? And it's a secure sticky, right? It learned it's sticky. Now, one of the cool things about sticky is I can save the configuration here. Let's go ahead and say write mem. I can reload this switch. And when the switch reloads, right, let's say maybe the switch powered off and powered back on, because I just saved the configuration here, and let's hit the fast forward arrow to get these green arrows up and running, what you're going to see is show run. Take a look at that. It still has that sticky information in the running config. So now we're going to attach the rogue laptop to any unused switch port. And notice that the link lights are red. Well, that's because it was shut down. So enable the port and verify the rogue laptop can ping PC1 and PC2. So let's do that. So let's connect up this rogue laptop here. And we're going to stick it in fast Ethernet 03, right? Hey, why not? Because we've already configured that port. So the rogue laptop is plugged in. Let's see if the rogue laptop is actually configured with an IP. And it is. You can see right up here the rogue laptop. So let's go to the command line prompt and let's say ping 10.10.10.11. And you can see we can ping 10.10.10.11. And let's see if we can ping 10.10.10. Oops, sorry. That's pinging itself. Let's ping 10.10.10.10. And there we go. We can ping out to PC1 as well. So we've done that. So after verification, shut down the port connected to rogue laptop. Well, that's fast Ethernet 03. So let's go ahead and get into global config, interface fast Ethernet 03, and we're going to shut that port down. And here's what we're going to do now. We're going to disconnect PC2, and we're going to connect the rogue laptop to fast Ethernet 02. So let's eliminate that connection and that connection, and let's make a new connection from rogue laptop into fast Ethernet 02. And we'll hit the fast forward arrow here a few times. Now, it wants us to confirm, verify that the rogue laptop is unable to ping PC1. And the reason that it's unable to ping PC1 is because it's in restrict mode. So again, the port is not shut down, but it's restricting the traffic, right? It's dropping the frames from this unknown source, right? And let's go ahead and pull switch 1 up. And let's go ahead and take a look. If I was to say, we'll flop out here, we'll say show port security interface fast Ethernet 02. Here's another great command. So show port security address, show port security interface, and then the interface. And take a look. You can see port security is enabled. The port status, it's secure and it's up. Violation mode restrict. Maximum MAC address count, total MAC address count, sticky MAC address count. And there's the last MAC address, and the security violation count is 5. What if I was to ping again? So let's figure out what that security violation count is all about. So the security violation count is 5. I'm going to ping from rogue laptop to PC1 again. And now take a look at that 8. And let's see if it goes up here. And it looks like the output from the ping command might be a little bit behind, but that is what is incrementing that security violation count. So let's run some of those other commands. Show port security. You can see there is our violation count. What if I was to say show port security address? We take a look here on fast Ethernet 02 secure sticky, right? And this shows us now, is that the address that is currently plugged in? And how could we check that? Well, I could say ipconfig. There's a couple ways we can do it. I could say ipconfig-all over here. And let's take a look at the physical address. That is not the Charlie 51 Charlie. So this is the MAC address that has been learned. If I say show run, you can see that that's the MAC address, Zone 02. That was the PC2 MAC address. And we can confirm that with PC2 by taking a look over here as well and saying ipconfig. I was going to say show ipconfig. So ipconfig-all, and there it is. Right? So how many violations have occurred? Well, we've got 9. You may end up with a different number depending on how many ping commands you ran. So let's disconnect the rogue laptop. Let's click on that X, disconnect it. We're going to come back over here. And it wants us to connect PC2 back up and reconnect PC2 to Fast Ethernet 02. And then why is PC2 able to ping PC1, but the rogue laptop is not? Well, let's come back over here and let's plug the rogue laptop back. And I think what they might be asking here with why is PC2 able to ping PC1, but the rogue is not? Well, the rogue wouldn't have been able to do it because of the restrict. However, the port is shut down here. So let's do this. I'm going to bring the port up. Go into global config. Interface Fast Ethernet 03. We're going to say no shut. We're going to bring that port up. And I think the last question here is why is PC2 able to ping now, whereas rogue laptop, when it was plugged into PC2's port, it could not? And the reason for that is because Fast Ethernet 02 had the sticky address. Our maximum number of MAC addresses allowed on that port was 1, and we had already met that maximum with PC2's MAC address. All right, let's come back over here to the rogue laptop. Can it ping 10.10.10.10? And it can, right? And the reason it can now is it's back in Fast Ethernet 03, and we brought that port up. All right, well, we ended up at 99%. I think it's upset about... it's upset because we brought the port back up. I forgot we had shut all those ports down. So if we wanted to transition back to 100, it's not because of anything with port security. I think we're in Fast Ethernet 03. There we go. It's because the port is not shut down. So now we're back at 100%. All right. Well, hopefully that gives you a nice soft landing into port security. And this is something that if you're working in a government environment or one of the notorious 3-letter agencies that are around the DC metro area, there's a very good chance that you will become painfully familiar with port security and having to enable port security on your Cisco switch devices. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you've got any questions on how you would configure port security and some of the semantics behind it. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video.